It's very common in the toy industry to think of toys as being generational, meaning there's decades or, maybe spans of 15 to 25 years that are focused on certain toys. Now, obviously, there are toys that outlast generations and become what are called evergreen, meaning they're just perpetually on shelf and they just have universal appeal. But the thing is, each generation does tend to like their own set of toys. But there's other ways of looking at generations in toys. Well, one is the fact that Transformers are constantly referred to as Generation 1. That tends to be, when you talk about action figures and use the word generation, this is usually the go-to image. But I want to look more at the generation between the same character. Now, I don't mean when you're reevaluating at different scales or even doing homages 30 years later. What I'm talking about is when you have a reissue of an exact character, but in a new tool. So here's a perfect example. Han Solo, Power of the Force 2, released in 1995 in his A New Hope kind of cantina outfit. And Power of the Force 2, Han Solo in 1998, same outfit. So this is what I'm talking about. The generation within toy lines. What is the established period when you can redo a figure and still be acceptable by the toy buying and collector community? So this Luke here, which was the second A New Hope Luke, took 2 to 3 years to get to market. This is because this is how long it actually takes to develop a toy. So that's the minimum amount of time it's going to be. So what I want to look at is, as collectors, how do we feel when the same character is revisited? And how much time has to pass before a company can revisit and we feel comfortable that enough improvements have been made to justify rebuying that figure? That a character that was once done by one company can then be remade by another. Marvel Legends is a perfect example because it's crossed between different toy lines and different companies, and I've even made videos wondering if both companies, Toy Biz and Hasbro, are making the same line because so many improvements have been made since the day. And actually, if you look at when Hasbro took over Marvel Legends, it's a really good example. They were very hesitant out the gate to redo characters that had been done before. So you'll notice that a lot of their early waves were chock full of kind of, yeah, you had your A-listers in there, but there were a lot of odd kind of modern versions of characters or, D-list characters. Versus now, Marvel Legends has a lot of redos. I mean, heck, this new Spider-Man wave coming has 3 characters that have been done before and are being remade, especially if you go back to the Toy Biz days, if you will. So how long do we have to wait? And as collectors, how long do we feel comfortable waiting for a company to redo a character? What kind of improvements are necessary to justify that? With Spider-Man, we have things like the pegless joints that have come along that have justified a character like Spider-Man being redone. But as an A-lister, he should be redone every year. Maybe not the exact same character. Otherwise, if you're not an A-lister, it's usually kind of a 5-year rule. That tends to be it. I mean, obviously, this isn't written down anywhere. But getting a character to get redone, if you look, yeah, usually about every 5 years. Now, for those of us who invested in collecting for 20 to 30 years, and I like to use my Marvel Legends X-Men collection as an example of this because it has taken me 25 years to amass this level of character selection. I have a few figures that are placeholders, like Firestar waiting for Rachel Summers or Tigra waiting for Feral to come out. It's the closest I could get without doing a custom. Now, one issue I have as far as redos is making sure the original one is done. All right, so I started my collection with Shatterstar and Rogue. And Rogue is what really started the kind of gold color of the outfits. Now, for a lot of us action figure collectors, we don't have a trophy shelf. Our action figures are our trophy shelf. This is what we're most proud of. Like I said, I've been trying to collect these X-Men Marvel Legends figures for 20 years to complete kind of the 1992 Jim Lee-ish era. Speaking of which, these characters are now getting redone as part of the X-Men Animated 97 line. It's not the first time we've had these characters redone and animated. The first attempt at this used those cell shading techniques, which drove me nuts. I can't stand those. I'm glad they're making their way out. But yeah, to me, this kind of like ruined figures. I'm like, really? That's a lighting effect. If I want lighting on a figure, I'll shine a light on them. Especially because the only way to get Morph was getting him with these cell shading effects. Well, luckily a little nail polish and some scrubbing with a Q-tip will take those off, but that's a whole other video. The point being is we're now getting all these X-Men characters re-released. See, there's Rogue again, but now in brighter yellow colors. And this is great because they're different enough versus the kind of goldish, orangish version that I have, that a lot of us have, that we've been collecting for 20 years. So it gives new fans the chance to get characters closer to the animated look. Was it yellow? Yeah, I guess it was yellow. But at the same time, rewarding the previous fans who have been collecting the more orange version. So, in other words, the reissue is more acceptable because there are significant aesthetic changes. Now, my issue, though, is one character in particular, Feral, which has not been, Wolfsbane, which has not been released in her X Factor outfit. What I'm really hoping is that she'll match the rest of X Factor in all of these X-Men characters I've been collecting in the more orangey gold look. So this is a custom here, not the actual figure. But this is what I expect she's going to look like. What I don't want to say I fear, but the concern is now that we're getting X-Men figures in more of a yellow look for the animated series that will get her in that look, and she won't match the rest of my collection. So that brings me to the final rule about it being great to revisit characters, but you have to finish the previous iteration first. So if we get Wolfsbane in this yellow from the animated series, I'll be kind of miffed because she won't match the collection I've amassed for the last 20 years. So do her first in the orange and then reissue her like Nightcrawler with a new head, or Wolverine and Cyclops in brighter yellow. Make a significant difference to the character so that the previous toy hunters who spent so long collecting all of these figures don't feel that they've wasted their time, that it wasn't worth it because characters just come along. The previous versions still have merit, and finding significant ways to then re-release a character with just enough difference. Change the color of the cape, add soft goods, give them a different hat. All right, Waylon Smithers, but you get what I mean. You don't want a missing piece though, and so for Feral, I keep saying that, Wolfsbane, if she's released first in bright yellow and not the more orangey version to match the previous figures, well, that is an issue with going back a toy between generations. Finish one and then do the next. I hope this was an interesting look at when figures get remade and how often they can and should. As adult collectors, we have a lot to say on this. Let me know your thoughts, and as always, sharing these videos is the best way to support this channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.